Hey guys, Matt from Just Ratchet here, and today on the table behind me I have some of the best tools, a little over 10 of them, for the at-home DIY mechanic that are going to make his life much easier, and I'm going to go over those and share those with you today. Now, the holidays are right around the corner. There's going to be lots of shopping going on, and if you've bought a new house, you're a new homeowner, or you just have somebody in your life that tinkers and does stuff, these are going to be gifts you could buy that person where you almost can't go wrong. We will get into this. I will show you all of the tools that we're going to talk about, go over some of the features in general, and why they're good tools for the at-home DIY mechanic. So let's get into it right now. Okay, so the first thing we have on our list are impact wrenches. Now, there's a lot of different kinds and a lot of different types, but your basic DIY person is going to be looking for a 1/2 inch impact, whether that be pneumatic like this one that hooks up to an air compressor, or that's going to be like this Cobalt that I have here, which is obviously battery operated and cordless. Now, these have a little more freedom of use as far as where you can take them and what you can do with them, but that's not to be outdone by the pneumatic impact. This thing can keep going as long as you need it to, as long as your compressor can keep up with it, and these are very handy if your person in question or you plan on doing lots of work with the impact. So you do have a positive here with the batteries, but that isn't to be outdone by pneumatic. Next up on the list, we have 3/8 electric ratchet. Okay, so the difference here between this and like the impact is made to break things loose, right? Those big stubborn bolts and nuts that you come across. This is an electric ratchet. The plus for this is that it spins when you activate it, and that's going to pull those fasteners off just a little bit faster. A lot of times you have very long bolts with lots of threads, or you'll have a stud with a long thread, and getting that nut off of there might take a minute with a wrench or a ratchet. This makes those things go a lot faster. This saves so much time in the garage. They're cheap and affordable. I have this one from Chemo. There are also ones from brands like Tack Life and other bargain brands. There are also Milwaukee and all the popular brands that have these. So these are a very nice addition to anyone's garage. Next up on the must-have list for any DIY mechanic is a torque wrench. Now again, these come in different sizes. This is a 1/2 inch torque wrench. What this is for is some certain bolts and nuts on cars are to be torqued down to a specific setting for purposes of keeping the bushings straight and not crushed, in terms of the engine, making sure things fit up flush and smooth. So you don't want to over tighten, you don't want to under tighten, and in those cases you absolutely need a torque wrench. This one here is a Harbor Freight Pittsburgh Pro, and it's done me very well. So you can buy cheap alternatives. You don't have to necessarily go out and spend an arm and a leg on a torque wrench if you're just doing weekend work. Now on the list, a tap and die set. Now this is a basic set from Harbor Freight. Again, cheaper tools, they do just fine. Now, the important thing about tap and dies is what you're doing with them. If you're a machinist, right, and you are fabricating things from scratch, you're tapping a thick piece of steel that you drilled a hole into, you know, for the first time, then you're gonna want and you're gonna need higher quality taps. But for most of us DIY mechanics and people who are cleaning up threads that already exist, re-drilling and re-tapping something that's already there, these are gonna do just fine for most of us. You still have to be very careful. They are very hard because they have to tap that new metal. That also makes them a little brittle. So you can break even the best taps. But for most people, cleaning and making sure your threads are good for a project, this is going to do just fine. This covers SAE and metric, a nice variety of all of them. Something like this is going to be very good for anyone you could be looking for. Next up on the list, guys, we have heat. Now this is an electric, you can see the cord there. This is an electric heat gun. On its low setting, I think it's like 750 watts. I think on the high setting it's about 1500. This is a Wagner. I picked this up. They're very cheap, very inexpensive, and you use this when you need to heat something up, when the bolt just won't come loose, the nut just won't come off. Sometimes heat is the key to getting those things off. This here is a propane torch with a valve on it. The valve is separate. They do not generally come together. You can buy some kits. Now this is propane, and this works all right for me and my uses. There is also a yellow cylinder that's referred to as MAP gas. That burns a little hotter, and in the industry and in automotive work, for most people to lean towards the MAP gas. It burns a little hotter. That's not to say that these are not good options too. For a DIYer or somebody at home, these both will get you there too. They just may take a little longer. Next up on the list, we have gloves. They are very important. There are many different kinds. These are some basic Hardy brand Harbor Freight work gloves. You could call them mechanics gloves. There's not much to them. They do provide a good amount of protection when you're working with your hands, but they're real basic. It's a soft material, highly flexible, but they will do the job. Also, if you're not doing the protecting your hands from, impacts and things like that, the other thing is a good pair of rubber nitrile gloves. Now the important thing here, these are again from Harbor Freight, but the important thing here to consider is the thickness. These are the 9 mil. These are very thick. They rip not very often. You have to really be doing some heavy work for these to rip on you, and so they last a lot longer. In most cases, they're going to last you the duration of the job that you're doing with maybe only 1 or 2 pairs. So the thickness is very important. So rubber gloves are for like oil changes or when you're getting into greasy and dirty areas where you don't want to completely ruin your hands. So rubber gloves, nitrile gloves do still have their place. Then there's what I consider to be the king. These are work gloves, mechanics gloves from Ulsa Tools. They're a Canadian tool company. They offer a lot of products. The important thing about these is they have a rubber outer molding over the back of your hand, your fingers, your thumb, that still allows you to be flexible. So in case you have a wrench slip or something, it's going to help keep you from bashing your hand or cutting it on another surface. That's the other aspect of these. They are cut resistant gloves. There have been many people that have tried and tested these out. This set I have are actually very old. I think they're approaching 8 months to a year, somewhere in there. And I use these. I use them so much. I got them for work as well, and I use them there. I've done everything from yard work to mechanic work to other kinds of odd jobs, moving wood and lumber around. They're great. The palm is covered with rubber. The coating's good. It's only starting to wear thin in a couple of spaces where you would expect, like the bridge in between your thumb and your forefinger, things like that, where you grip the most. But something like this is going to be a great thing for a DIY or at-home mechanic. So keep that in mind. Next up, while we're talking about cleanliness, for things like cleaning your car, oil changes, things like that, you're gonna need rags. Now we've all seen the classic red shop rag the mechanics like to use, and those are great. I just don't have any on hand at the moment that are clean enough to do in a video. But Here are some other options that you might want to think about. For your lint-free, for your cleaning windows, you're wiping things down, sometimes even polishing, hand waxing, things like that. You can use things like this. These are microfiber towels. They're available everywhere, and they are a lint-free option, and they do really good at picking up and holding dirt and dust. So you should definitely have some microfiber towels in your arsenal. Now this is just a basic kind of cloth white shop towel that I bought a while back. I bought a big pack of them. I have been using them very often. And so these are a couple that I still have. They're kind of big. You could rewash them if you wanted to, if they weren't too soiled with oil and things like that. You could rewash them and reuse them just like the red shop rags. But these are not lint-free. These are more for cleaning and wiping away debris and things like that from surfaces that you're not worried about scratching and other things like that. So still very useful. The next one on the list, guys, I actually don't have an example of. And this is something that when I just did the head gasket job on my Fiesta, I was actually regretting, and I plan on sometime in the future remedying this. These are different kinds of pliers. This is a groove joint, water pump plier. People call it different things. Channel lock. These are adjustable, and you can adjust them to different sizes. This is a needle nose plier, and this is a pair of slip joint pliers. There's two different settings. It helps you get some things that might be a little bit bigger, but these are your basic things. This is WIA, this is channel lock, this is an Irwin Vice Grip brand. So the thing though that you really need are hose clamp pliers. I will see if I can find a picture and throw them up on the screen. Also, there will be links in the description below to a lot of these items, so you could check it out there. But a hose clamp plier is made to go onto a hose clamp that is made to be squeezed to release its pressure to move it out of the way. The hose clamp pliers allow you to do that much easier. They're made to grip those hose clamps and make it so much easier to get them out of the way. I used many different pliers and things to get to the ones, and I had a heck of a time with some of them. So I know I need some hose clamp pliers. Most people, if you're doing any kind of basic repairs on your cars, are going to need them at some time or another. So definitely check those out. Next up on the list is a grease gun. For a lot of things in the suspension, you're going to have to grease up ball joints and things like that with something. Now you can get bigger grease guns, they are available. This is what most people refer to as a mini grease gun or a pistol grip grease gun, and it's a smaller form factor. It's going to get you into most places that you need to go and allow you to fill those bushings and bearings with grease that they need to keep doing their jobs over a longer period of time. So suspension repair, especially lower control arms and things like that, a lot of ball joints have grease fittings that you need to refill with grease periodically to keep them going. And this is something that everybody who works on cars should have, even just if it's only one of these mini ones. Next up on the list, we have breaker bars. Now, like the Impact and the Ratchet that I showed you before, these come in your standard drives for sockets. This is a 3/8 breaker bar. This is a 1/2 inch breaker bar. Bigger, longer for the 1/2 inch, a little smaller and a little more compact for the 3/8. But they both do the same thing. This is exactly what the name says. It's for breaking bolts, nuts loose, fasteners loose, so that you don't break your ratchet or whatever wrench. These have a lot more power behind them and a lot more force, and their length makes it easier to break those things loose. On these, I have put on these cold shrink tubing hand grips. They're made out of rubber. I do have a video on that process and the cold shrink tubing to make hand grips. I will put that up here in a card if I remember, and you can check that out there. So breaker bars are very important. You never want to break nuts and bolts loose with a ratchet. You can if they're not providing a lot of resistance, but the minute that starts to feel tight, you really need to go grab a nice breaker bar. There are many different options, low cost options, high cost options. So check into that. It's a gift where you really can't go wrong. Well guys, that's gonna wrap up my list today for what I feel are 10 really good tools or gifts for the DIY mechanic, either that being yourself or someone in your life. I will include links in the description below to where you can shop and look around at some of these options. I will make them less product specific and more general, so they will pull up a search with those types of items so you can look around, browse, and see what you like, what's within your price range, if these are things that you are going to consider. But I highly encourage anyone who works on vehicles, or if somebody's a new homeowner or just getting into their own vehicle maintenance, to strongly consider these items that I've listed here. They make your life so much easier and will make repairs and upkeep on your vehicle much more easy. Guys, that's it for the video today. I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate you spending this time with me. As always, all of my videos go to Patreon first. There's a link in the description to my Patreon page if you would like early access to my videos. And always, I thank you all for your support. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video.